I was wiping down tables at the diner when 3 men started making disgusting comments. My hands shook as I tried to ignore them. Then the leader grabbed my wrist. I froze. But what happened next? Let's just say my husband doesn't take kindly to people touching his wife. Before we dive into this crazy story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because you won't believe how this unfolds. Trust me, you don't want to miss the ending. Now let me take you back to that day and how everything started. My name is Sarah, and I'm 24 years old. 6 months ago, I married the most incredible man I've ever met. His name is Derek, and yes, you might have heard of him. He's a professional MMA fighter, and over the years, he's built quite a fortune through smart investments and business deals. People call him a billionaire, and honestly, I never thought I'd end up with someone like him. We met at a charity event where I was volunteering, and he was the guest speaker. There was just something about the way he carried himself with confidence, but without arrogance, that drew me in. After we got married, Derek kept telling me I didn't need to work. He'd say things like, "Sarah, you can pursue whatever makes you happy. Money isn't something you need to worry about." And I appreciated that. I really did. But here's the thing about me. I've always been independent. I grew up in a modest household where my parents worked hard for everything we had. The idea of just sitting at home, spending someone else's money, even if that someone was my husband, it just didn't sit right with me. So 3 weeks after our honeymoon, I made a decision. I was going to get a job. Not because I needed the money, but because I needed to feel like myself. I needed to prove to myself that I could still stand on my own 2 feet. The problem was, I knew Derek would worry. He's protective, sometimes overly so, and I didn't want him to think I was unhappy or that he wasn't providing enough, so I did something I'm not entirely proud of. I didn't tell him. I found a job at this little place called Rosie's Diner, about 20 minutes from our house. It was perfect, honestly. The kind of place with checkered floors, red vinyl booths, and a jukebox in the corner that still played oldies. The owner, Linda, was this sweet woman in her 50s who'd been running the place for over 20 years. When I walked in for the interview, she took one look at me and smiled. "You've got kind eyes, honey. When can you start?" I started the next Monday. My uniform was simple, a white blouse and a brown apron with the diner's logo stitched on the front. Nothing fancy, but I felt proud wearing it. My coworkers were great too. There was Maria, who'd been waitressing there for a decade and knew every regular customer by name, and Kevin, the cook, who always had a joke ready and made the best pancakes I'd ever tasted. The customers were mostly locals, friendly people who left decent tips and treated us with respect. For the first 3 weeks, everything was perfect. I'd leave the house in the morning, telling Derek I was going shopping or meeting friends, and I'd head to the diner. The work was hard, my feet ached by the end of each shift, but I loved it. I loved earning my own money, even if it was just a fraction of what Derek made in a day. It made me feel accomplished. It made me feel like me. And then they walked in. It was a Tuesday afternoon, around 2 o'clock. The lunch rush had just ended, and I was clearing tables when the door chimed. 3 men walked in, and something about them immediately put me on edge. The one in front was tall, maybe in his mid-30s, with slicked-back hair and a cocky smirk that made my stomach turn. His friends followed behind him, laughing at something he'd said. They chose a booth in my section, and I took a deep breath before walking over with menus. "Good afternoon, gentlemen. Welcome to Rosie's. Can I start you off with something to drink?" I kept my voice professional, polite, the way Linda had taught me. The leader, I'd later learn his name was Brett, looked me up and down in a way that made my skin crawl. "Well, aren't you a pretty little thing?" "What's your name, sweetheart?" I forced a smile. "I'm Sarah. I'll be taking care of you today." "Oh, I bet you will," he said, and his friends snickered. "We'll take 3 coffees, and make sure you bring extra sugar, honey. Although looking at you, I think we've got all the sweetness we need right here." I felt my cheeks burn, but I nodded and walked away. Maria caught my eye from across the diner and mouthed, "You okay?" I nodded, but my hands were shaking as I poured their coffee. When I brought the drinks over, Brett made a show of brushing his fingers against mine when he took his cup. "Careful now. Don't spill." Those hands looked too delicate for this kind of work. I pulled my hand back quickly. Are you ready to order? They took their time, making jokes, asking inappropriate questions disguised as small talk. You married, Sarah? Nah, a girl like you is probably playing the field, right? When I told them I was married, Brett laughed. Lucky guy. He know his wife's working at a diner? Or are you keeping secrets? That comment hit closer to home than he knew, and I felt a flush of shame. I took their order and got away from that table as fast as I could. When they finally left an hour later, they left a $5 tip on a $40 bill, and Brett winked at me. See you tomorrow, beautiful. I hoped I wouldn't. But he was right. They came back the next day, and the day after that. Each visit got worse. They'd request my section specifically. They'd make comments about my appearance, my body, asking if I had a boyfriend, telling me I was wasting my time with whoever I was with. Brett started getting bolder, touching my hand when I set down plates, letting his fingers linger on my wrist when I handed him the check. His friends would laugh and encourage him, making kissing sounds whenever I walked past their table. Other customers started noticing. I could see the uncomfortable looks on their faces, but nobody said anything. I didn't blame them. What were they supposed to do? I thought about telling Derek every single day, but every time I picked up my phone, I imagined his reaction. Derek isn't just protective, he's got a temper when it comes to people he loves being disrespected. I'd seen him nearly get into fights with guys who just looked at me the wrong way at the grocery store. If I told him about Brett, about the comments, the touching, I knew exactly what would happen. He'd come down to the diner, there'd be a scene, maybe even violence, and then what? He could get arrested. His career could be affected. And all because I couldn't handle 3 jerks at my secret job. So I kept quiet. I tried to handle it myself. I avoided their table as much as possible, kept my responses short and professional, and prayed they'd get bored and stop coming. But they didn't stop. They kept coming back, and each time they pushed a little further. I reported it to Linda after the first week. I told her I was uncomfortable, that these men were harassing me. She sighed and patted my hand. Honey, I know it's not pleasant, but they're customers. Just ignore them. Don't let them get under your skin. They'll get bored eventually. But they didn't get bored. They got worse. By the 3rd week, I was dreading going to work. The stress was eating at me. I wasn't sleeping well. Derek noticed I seemed distracted, but when he asked if everything was okay, I just smiled and said I was fine. The lie tasted bitter, but I kept swallowing it down. Then came that Friday. I'll never forget that day. The diner was packed that evening. Every booth was full. The sounds of conversation and clinking silverware filled the air, and I was running from table to table trying to keep up. I was exhausted, my feet were killing me, and then I heard that familiar, awful laugh. They were back, all 3 of them, walking in like they owned the place. And of course, they sat in my section. I approached their table with my notepad, trying to keep my expression neutral. Good evening? What can I get you? Brett leaned back in his seat, grinning up at me. There's our favorite waitress. You know, Sarah, I've been thinking about you all week. Couldn't wait to come back and see that pretty face. I'll need your order, please, I said, my voice tight. Aw, don't be like that. We're just being friendly. Right, boys? His friends nodded, smirking. You know what? I'll have whatever you recommend, as long as you're the one bringing it to me. I took their order and walked away, my heart pounding. The whole night they were louder than usual, making comments that other customers could hear, calling me over constantly for ridiculous requests, just to make me come back to their table. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, could sense the discomfort in the room, but I just kept my head down and did my job. Then it happened. I was carrying a full tray of food to another table, balancing it carefully, when Brett stuck his foot out into the aisle. I didn't see it in time. My shoe caught his boot, and suddenly I was falling. The tray flew from my hands, plates crashing to the floor, food splattering everywhere. The entire diner went silent, except for the sound of breaking dishes and the roaring laughter from Brett's table. I landed hard on my knees, the impact sending a shock of pain up my legs. My face burned with humiliation as I crouched there, surrounded by broken plates and spilled food. Tears stung my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of these people. "Oops," Brett said, his voice dripping with false concern. "Sorry about that, sweetheart. Let me help you." He slid out of the booth and crouched down next to me, close enough that I could smell his cologne. "I've got it," I said quietly, starting to pick up the broken pieces. "You sure? You look a little shaken up." He reached out and grabbed my wrist, holding it tightly. Too tightly. "Maybe you should take a break. Or better yet, let me take you out sometime. Dinner, drinks, show you how a real man treats a woman." I tried to pull my hand away, but his grip tightened. "Let go," I whispered, my voice shaking. "Come on, don't be like that. I'm just trying to let go of my wife, now." The voice cut through the air like a blade, low, controlled, but carrying a weight that made everyone in the diner freeze. I knew that voice better than my own heartbeat. Derek. My head snapped up, and there he was, standing just inside the diner entrance. He was wearing jeans and a gray t-shirt, his muscular frame filling the doorway. But it wasn't his size that made Brett's hand immediately release my wrist. It was the look in his eyes. I'd never seen Derek truly angry before. His jaw was clenched, his hands were in fists at his sides, and he was staring at Brett with an intensity that would make anyone's blood run cold. The diner was completely silent now. Even the jukebox seemed to have stopped playing. Derek walked toward us, each step measured and deliberate. Brett scrambled to his feet, backing up slightly. His friends had gone pale, their eyes wide as they recognized Derek. Of course they recognized him. Derek's face had been on sports channels, magazines, billboards advertising his fights. "I said, let go of my wife," Derek repeated, even though Brett had already released me. He reached down and helped me to my feet, his hand gentle on my elbow, his eyes never leaving Brett's face. "Hey man, look, we were just joking around," Brett stammered, his earlier cockiness completely gone. "We didn't mean anything by it." "Joking?" Derek's voice was quiet, but somehow that made it more terrifying. "You think tripping my wife, making her fall, grabbing her wrist, that's a joke? We were just— I've been driving past this place for 3 weeks, Derek interrupted. Saw her car in the parking lot, thought it was strange. Today I decided to stop in, surprise her, see what she was up to. And I walk in to see some guy putting his hands on her while she's on her knees picking up broken plates." He took a step closer to Brett. "Does that seem funny to you?" Brett's friends were trying to disappear into their booth. Brett himself looked like he wanted to run, but Derek was blocking his path. "Step outside with me," Derek said. It wasn't a request. "Look, I don't want any trouble," Brett said, his voice shaking now. "Then you shouldn't have touched her." "Outside, now." I watched as Derek walked toward the door, and Brett had no choice but to follow. His friends stayed behind, looking terrified. Through the large windows, the entire diner watched as Derek and Brett stood in the parking lot. Linda came over and gently guided me to a booth, but I couldn't take my eyes off the scene outside. Derek wasn't yelling, he wasn't even raising his voice, but I could see Brett shrinking with every word. Then Derek pulled out his phone and showed Brett something on the screen. Brett's face went from scared to absolutely terrified. He started talking rapidly, gesturing with his hands, clearly apologizing. Derek just stood there, calm and unmoved, letting Brett dig himself deeper. After what felt like an eternity but was probably only 5 minutes, Brett practically ran back into the diner, grabbed his friends, threw money on the table, and they rushed out without a word. Through the window, I watched them speed out of the parking lot like the devil himself was chasing them. Derek came back inside, and the moment he did, the entire diner erupted in applause. Customers were clapping, some were cheering, and Kevin stuck his head out of the kitchen to give Derek a thumbs up. Derek ignored all of it. He walked straight to me, his expression softening as he knelt down in front of the booth where I was sitting. "Are you okay?" That's when the tears finally came. All the stress, the fear, the humiliation of the past 3 weeks came pouring out, and I started crying. Derek pulled me into his arms, holding me tightly as I sobbed into his shoulder. "I'm sorry," I kept saying. "I'm so sorry." "Shh, you have nothing to be sorry for," he murmured, stroking my hair. "Nothing at all." After I'd calmed down, Derek walked over to Kevin and handed him a wad of cash. 500. That should cover the mess and then some. Kevin tried to refuse, but Derek insisted. Then Linda approached, wringing her hands. "Sir, I'm so sorry. I had no idea it had gotten this bad. If I'd known—" "You did know," Derek said, his voice firm but not unkind. "Sarah told you these men were harassing her and you told her to ignore it." Linda's face flushed. "I just thought—" "You thought wrong. This is your establishment, which means your employees' safety is your responsibility." He paused, then his expression softened slightly. "But we can fix this. Install panic buttons behind the counter, put up cameras, train your staff on harassment protocols. I'll fund whatever you need to make this place safer." Linda nodded quickly. "Yes, absolutely. Whatever it takes." Derek turned back to me. "Can we talk?" We sat in a corner booth, away from the curious eyes of the other customers. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Derek sighed. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked quietly. "Because I wanted to handle it myself," I said. "I didn't want you to think I couldn't take care of myself. I didn't want to seem weak." "Sarah, asking for help isn't weakness. And keeping something like this from me, that hurts worse than anything those guys could have said." "I know, I wanted to prove I could be independent, that I didn't need to rely on you for everything." Derek reached across the table and took my hand. "You are independent. Getting a job, making your own money, that's great. I support that. But independence doesn't mean isolation. It doesn't mean suffering in silence when people are hurting you. We're partners, Sarah. That means we face things together." I squeezed his hand, tears threatening again. "What did you show them on your phone?" A small smile crossed his face. "The parking lot has security cameras." I told them my lawyer was already reviewing footage of their harassment, and if they ever came near you again or near this diner, they'd be dealing with a lawsuit for assault and harassment. Brett nearly wet himself. Despite everything, I laughed. Then Derek's expression grew serious again. "There's something else I need to tell you," he said. "I own this building." I blinked. "What?" "I bought it 6 months ago as an investment property. Linda rents the space from me. I've been meaning to do renovations, improve security, but I kept putting it off. If I'd known you were working here, if I'd known what was happening—" He shook his head. "I would have done something sooner." "You own the building," I repeated, still processing. "Yeah. And I have a proposition for you. If you want real independence, real responsibility, help me manage my properties. Not just this one, all of them. Use that business degree you got. It's real work, real money you'd be earning, and you'd be your own boss. Well, technically I'd be your boss, but you know what I mean." I stared at him, overwhelmed. "You'd trust me with that?" "Sarah, I'd trust you with everything I have. I love that you want to work, that you want to achieve things on your own. I just don't want you to think you have to hide it from me, or that you have to face harassment alone because you're trying to prove something." We talked for another hour, really talked, about independence and partnership and what it means to support each other. By the time we left the diner that night, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. Brett and his friends never came back. Linda installed the security measures Derek suggested, and the diner became a safer place for everyone who worked there. I still work there part-time because I genuinely enjoy it, but now I also help Derek manage his property investments. It's challenging work, but it's exactly what I needed. Looking back, I learned something important that day. Being strong doesn't mean facing everything alone. It doesn't mean refusing help or hiding your struggles because you're afraid of appearing weak. Real strength is knowing when to ask for support from the people who love you. It's understanding that partnership isn't about dependency, it's about facing life's challenges together. Derek doesn't want to control me or take away my independence. He wants to stand beside me, to protect me when I need it, and to support my goals and dreams. And I've learned that letting him do that doesn't make me weak. It makes us stronger together. So that's my story. I learned that being strong doesn't mean facing everything alone. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is let someone help you. If you're dealing with harassment at work, please speak up. Tell someone. You don't deserve to suffer in silence. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories. Drop a comment below telling me how you would have handled this situation. And remember, you're stronger than you think. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.